Hello guys, welcome back. I hope everyone is doing great. So today I want to talk about two fragrances 2025 releases from the house of Maison Francis Kurkdjian. I have here two official samples. One is a sample of Le Beau Parfum, and this is a sample of Kurky. Finally, I have been so curious to get my nose on Kurky. And if I'm being completely honest, I'm actually a fan of the house of Maison Francis Kurkdjian. I have a handful of fragrances. And if I'm being completely honest with respect to Kurky, while I was really curious to get my nose on the fragrance, because it's a new release, I was sort of in my own head rolling my eyes thinking, this is gonna be another like super sweet, mass appealing candy fragrance. And I've sprayed this on skin a few times and I'm actually quite surprised it is not what I expected whatsoever. But let's start with Le Beau Parfum. So Le Beau Parfum was originally released in 2015, and this one, along with Absolute pour le Matin as well as Absolute pour le Soir, are re-releases of fragrances that were at some point discontinued. I think Reflets d'Ambre is not technically stated by the house of Maison Francis Kurkdjian as being a re-release of Ciel de Gaume. However, in the fragrance community, as far as I'm concerned, I believe that Reflets d'Ambre was sort of meant to take the place of Ciel de Gaume, or maybe be similar to Ciel de Gaume. I would love to test that fragrance. I may end up just blind buying it. I've never smelled Ciel de Gaume, so for me, I would not have anything to compare it to, and if it's a beautiful fragrance, then it's a beautiful fragrance. But back to Le Beau Parfum, which was originally released in 2015, discontinued, I'm not sure when, was re-released in 2025, as well as Kurky is a 2025 release. And I sprayed it on my left wrist a few hours ago. I've sprayed both of these on skin a few times just to get an idea of what the fragrance smells like, what my thoughts are. I have some notes here. I have some notes on the notes in the fragrances. And this one took me by surprise because, with a few exceptions, I'm not sure that I should generalize, but with some exceptions, I feel like I see the house of Maison Francis Kurkdjian as having fragrances that are sort of subdued, and when it comes to the florals, I'm used to the fragrances that are soft. I used to own A La Rose, and I was surprised that this one was not soft. I expected a soft fragrance, and it's far from being soft. It actually opens quite bold, and it's a mix of orange blossom, jasmine, tuberose, and ylang ylang. Those are the notes that are listed if you look on Parfumo. And I love tuberose, I love jasmine, and I love ylang ylang. I also love orange blossom. So I'm a fan of each of the notes that are listed in this fragrance. But of course, it depends how a fragrance is done. It would be a very general thing to say that I just love all tuberose or all jasmine or all ylang ylang fragrances. This one has a very youthful sort of scent profile to my nose. It opens up quite bright. It's not the type of tuberose fragrance, for instance, that I would consider creamy, and I would use the word lush and narcotic, something like Moon Bloom by the house of Hiram Green. This one, I get tuberose as a prominent note. That's why I'm comparing the other fragrances to this one. Tuberose, while it comes along with that jasmine in the fragrance, and it's sort of this white flower bomb in the opening, I feel like the tuberose is a bit more prominent, and it outweighs the jasmine and the orange blossom and the ylang ylang, actually. So it's a bright opening. It almost reminds me of something youthful, like the way Parfums de Marly puts that lychee note together with rose in Delina. Not that I'm comparing this to Delina, but that sort of brightness, that sort of youthful, sort of juvenile scent profile, for me at least, I feel that this one is in that category, although when it dries down, it is a little bit dustier, and I think maybe the ylang ylang comes through and it's a little bit creamier. But overall, it's a floral bouquet. Overall, it's musky. Overall, it's kind of bold and bright. It's sunshine. It's a fragrance that sort of projects and has good sillage. So if you enjoy that sort of thing, you would enjoy this. I wouldn't say that this is close to the skin. As it dries down, it does get dustier and closer to the skin, but it is a fragrance that I was smelling, wafting off my skin for the entirety of the day, for hours, for 6 hours for sure. Yeah, so this is a bright white floral, predominantly tuberose with hints of jasmine. There is something a little bit green. There is something, like I said, creamy that sort of comes into play as it dries down, which is probably coming from the ylang ylang. But overall, I would say that it's a musky take on this tuberose jasmine sort of scent profile. There is something fresh. There is something fresh in the fragrance as well. So it definitely has an airy quality. There's something fresh, and I think that's coming from the fact that it's sort of a musky take on these white florals. It's pretty. I would use the word pretty. It's not necessarily something that I personally would go for. It's not how I like tuberose jasmine fragrances. It's not the type of floral fragrance that I personally enjoy. I think it's a little too bright, but it is pretty, and I think pretty is the way to describe this. There's nothing ugly about it. There's nothing offensive about it. It does project off the skin, so I think that this, if you overspray it, can be a bit too much. So that's my take on Le Beau. So let's move on to Kurky, the one that surprised me. And these are both Eau de Parfum concentration, by the way. And as you guys probably already know, Kurky is meant to capture a scent profile that goes back to Maison Francis Kurkdjian's childhood. So there are fruity notes in here, and I think, not Profumo, but I think Fragrantica shows candy, like jelly beans. And so that's why I was surprised when I smelled the fragrance, because I looked at the note breakdown on Profumo, I looked at the note breakdown on Fragrantica, and in my mind I had this sort of gummy bear, jelly bean sort of preconceived notion of what this was going to smell like. So I thought it was going to be a straight up sugar candy, candy shop, gourmand, maybe even gloopy, sticky, thick, sweet fragrance, and it's not. I sprayed this earlier on my right arm, and it's not what the fragrance is. Let's spray it again. So it's a musky fragrance, and it's actually more subdued than Le Beau Parfum. Le Beau Parfum is a more loud, bolder, brighter, in-your-face opening, at least. This one is much more subdued, which is not what I was expecting. And I would not describe this as a gourmand fragrance. I would describe this as a soft, musky fragrance with these hints of fruity notes. Yes, I can see the sort of connection to something a little bit candy-like, but not sugar, not a strong, very sweet candy, if that makes sense. Yeah, so I find the sweetness in here to be mild, and I expected something much more candy-like, straight up sugary candy sweet. It's not like a red candy. It's not like some fruity strawberry, cherry, sweet candy. It's coming off much more dusty, much more mild. It's coming off like something that accompanies maybe something slightly floral as well. And like I said, I'm associating it with something, maybe if you took a group of jelly beans, maybe the green jelly bean that's a little more mild, a little more neutral. Yes, it's sort of candy-like, but on the other hand, it's not super sweet. So it's not a gourmand, it's not a thick fragrance, it's not what I thought. It's much softer, and it's musky, and it's a soft musky. And it's not necessarily something that I find super exciting. I personally would not add a bottle of this to my collection, but I was pleasantly surprised, considering I thought this was going to be some gloopy, syrupy, sweet, candied fragrance. It's not. So let me know in the comments what you guys think of this one and of Le Beau Parfum. I never smelled the 2015 original one that was discontinued, so I have nothing to compare this one to. So let me know in the comments if you guys know what the differences are, if there are any. I have no idea, and what you guys think in general of these two fragrances. And as always, thank you so much for watching, your support, and your comments. Until next time, bye guys.